The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. You're giving veterans a voice today. Powered by WorkSimple, where we simplify your mission.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Lock in every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Tracer Rounds targeting veteran resources.
I wonder why life feels like chaos, like tracer rounds flying all around you. That's why I created the Tracer Rounds podcast. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, I help cut through the noise and point veterans to those resources they need. Since 2023,
to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast. And I'm Terry, your host. And tonight's voice is to Dr. Chrisanne Gordon. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. I love that intro too. Great intro.
Thank you, ma'am. It's great to have you on the platform tonight. I know we've been working on this interview for a little while. So can you tell us, obviously we know you're an MD, you're a doctor, you're a medical doctor, and you specialize, well, actually you are a medical director at a hospital, a local hospital in your area, correct?
Well, I was prior to that. I now do the foundation full-time. It's a full-time mission now. So that's what I'm doing.
And so tell us about your foundation and tell us about what you're doing and why you started that. I guess that's 3 questions all in one, and I apologize.
That's okay. I can take it from there. It's not really a problem. The interesting thing is, I had a special interest in traumatic brain injury because nothing really takes you out of life like that. I mean, if you can't think, you can't speak, if your brain isn't working, there's not much you can do. You are definitely helpless. So, I was on that kind of service for off and on for several years. And then I was a major klutz putting up Christmas decorations and I had my own traumatic brain injury, which is not at all due to courage, like our veterans, our guardians, not at all due to that, but just due to being very clumsy. But I was, loss of consciousness for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And 2 years getting back. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was basically my head hit the brick wall when I was pushing stuff in. It was just that interesting. But in retrospect, Terry, I've got to tell you, that was a very life-altering moment and led me on this journey, because what I found trying to come out of my own traumatic brain injury is that everything that we were doing for younger people with brain injuries was wrong. Because what we were primarily doing was treating them as if they had a stroke and it was an older brain. Okay, so the techniques that you used to get it back were very different, as I found out myself, because I basically used my little Apple computer at the time to get my voice back, to kind of hear things and then try to mimic it. So when you talk about being a voice for veterans, I've got to tell you, I've done it from day one. When I got my voice back, it was a very interesting moment. And one of those epiphanies that I'm going to need to use this going forward for more than I'm using it up till now. Do you know what I mean? Right. And it was about 4 or 5 months later that a friend of mine lost their son in Iraq. And that then became my voice. But it was just, when I talk to our veterans, when I see them, if you've had a brain injury, you recognize that faraway look, that look that's just not quite grasping it, but trying to fake it, because that's what I saw in the mirror for about 6 months. Do you know what I mean? So I'm blessed to have had that, and blessed to have found something to do with it. When I talk to our veterans and I say, well, I don't have any of the mechanisms you do. I was not at war. I was not being brave. I wasn't doing something courageous. But I do know what it's like to be in that fog. So it gives us at least a talking point.
Very good. So you did some studies on TBIs on the Afghanistan veterans at the VA, right?
Well, we weren't able to do it at the VA. So, but I understand what you're talking about. So my tour of duty at the VA, let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the studies, because that's kind of the chronologic order. Okay, so, I said a friend of mine lost her son in Iraq, and I didn't know what to do, but the grief, like that was the first time that I firsthand witnessed, the loss. I mean, the loss of a young person who had just turned 20 years old. It's not the loss of a life, and every life is worth it, don't get me wrong, but it's a loss of an entire future, of what could have been, and when I noticed that in him, I said, well, I've got to do something to ease their suffering or to make something out of this. So I called up the nearest VA. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if you've tried calling VAs before in the past, but this is the only time that somebody picked it up.
Oh, that's amazing.
This was back in 2008. Okay. And somebody picked it up on the third ring. And I told them, I had this thing. I'm a physician. I want to do something in Zachary's honor. His name, Zachary McBride was his name, sergeant in the U.S. Army, went into a booby-trapped house, and all of the troops around him, there were actually 7 casualties that day from that. So it was kind of to honor all of them and all of their families. And right away, that lady says, oh, let me put you in line with our director. I'm thinking, oh my golly. So this is exactly how it happened. The director gets on the phone. He goes, Dr. Gordon, a great, very spiritual Filipino physician who was there, thought a lot of veterans. He goes, you are the answer to my prayers. I just finished a novena this morning. And they're like, I don't know what's coming, but I know it's not what I was expecting. And what he was saying, so Terry, that was back in 2008 when they were just starting the 2nd level traumatic brain injury screening. And would I, come to the VA and do those? I go, well, I do know something of your screening, and I do know something of traumatic brain injury, but I can't come work for you because I have a practice, and I work a lot at that practice. But I can volunteer for you if you'll take me as a volunteer for a couple times a month. And somehow we worked that out, and that's what I did. So for a year, a few times a month, I would go in from 7 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, do the 2nd level traumatic brain injury screenings. And I really want to give a shout out to every single young hero, I call them, I know they hate being called heroes, a veteran who came into my office, because I learned something with every single one of them, something different that happened. So at the end of a year, the VA decided I was diagnosing too many with traumatic brain injury and called me up to my director, who had kind of brought me in, was no longer there, and they brought me in. And I remember this day so well, because there's like 8 Vietnam vets behind me saying, oh, Doc, you're in trouble now. We'll be right outside the door. If you need us, just call. It was something. And they went by my statistics. 85% of the people I'd seen had, the average number, Terry, was 8. I went up as high as one young boy had 32. He was 22 years old with 32 different either blast, RPG, or rocket propelled grenade, or heavy, artillery blast.
Wow.
It was really something. So I said, I'm just diagnosing the ones that have it. And my results are 85%, which are the same that the Cleveland VA was getting, the Stokes VA, which is really a good VA. Well, no, they were going to have to, get rid of me. And I used a line from Seinfeld, but I don't really work here. And that's what they got. We don't know how to get rid of you. We thought you would just leave. And I said, well, is there anybody on my schedule? Because usually they schedule 3 months ahead. Yeah, and they said, well, yeah, we have, 3 months. I said, well, I'm sticking till the last person you have scheduled is here, because that's on my list now. We have to do that. And I said, and by the way, this is not going to play well for us down the road, because everybody there knew that I was an Irish Catholic, and they fired me on St. Patrick's Day. I mean, that's
Oh my
what was so
goodness.
funny. And I sat there and I go, the irony of this, I can't ignore. Do you know what I mean? I can't ignore.
Goodness, right.
So I took really good notes during those last 3 months and finished up with all of the people I was supposed to see. And then they gave me a little commendation letter and sent me on my way. But what I was able to do, again, I thank them for that opportunity because, first of all, I found so many different things in a VA hospital system than in our civilian systems. And I'd been in rural civilian system and in the heartland and in the teaching hospital. I'd been to all those different venues. But this was so different to me because I'm not used to calling somebody by the last 4 digits of their social security number.
Right. Yes, it's a different world, isn't it?
I know it was very, very different. I wasn't used to the kind of, what should I say, military closure. I'm going to tough this up. I don't want to tell you because this may hurt you. You know, if I tell you what really happened to me, this may bother you. And it took me a while to get their confidence to say, you can hit me with anything. You know, I worked in an inner city hospital. I was on the trauma unit. And I wasn't prepared for all of it. Trust me, I really wasn't, because the difference in inner city combat in the 20th and 21st century is different than, you know, combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, which you're like 3-4 centuries. And some of those like places in Afghanistan where our guys are talking about, you're back at a little village culture, you know, and kind of the isolation of all that, realizing that, you know, here's where you were blown up in the middle of nowhere. I have to give a shout out to, you know, all of the medics, all of the corpsmen. I mean, the things that people can do under pressure, particularly young brains, you know, with a lot of adrenaline can do are definitely life-saving. So that was kind of my pathway. And I will say the biggest thing that I learned, Terry, at the VA was this. When I had my traumatic brain injury, I couldn't speak. I really couldn't see very well. It was kind of like seeing underneath water, you know, kind of that blurry, no focus, no ability to focus. And I didn't have like any feeling on the right side of my body. So all this was going on and I had a normal MRI. So get that.
Wow. How does that happen?
I know. That's what I thought too. Even though I wasn't thinking well, I kept thinking, how did that happen? But not one of my colleagues, not one of the people in the ER questioned that I was faking. So my call to action, my personal call to action, was when a patient of mine left their Wall Street Journal in my office one morning, and the headline, and I believe this was like in 2007, said, you know, veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan malingering, litigious, a lot of symptoms, normal MRIs, and that was my recruit. That was my call to action. Okay. I looked at that article. I go, I don't know what's going to happen, but this means something to me, and I'm going to have to do something about it when the time comes. So that's kind of what got me started, believing that the VA is the only system I know of where patients have to prove that they've got an issue. Now, they've got a history that's horrific. You know, I mean, I took histories in, like I said, in an inner city, and they were tough, but I never heard one like this young boy said, well, you know, all I did was drown in the Tigris River. And I stopped. I go, I never in my lifetime thought I would hear that as an opening, you know. And he was one of the young veterans that I saw that really pushed me down this pathway, because he had drowned. He wasn't eligible for services because he wasn't in combat. And he had had an anoxic brain injury, which is the worst, when the whole brain is devoid of oxygen for gosh knows how long. I mean, the story goes that Iraqi farmers got him out of the water, and then somebody else ran and got the troops who didn't even know that he had been left behind. So
oh my goodness.
I was able, that's when I found out that our senators, our US senators, can really make a lot of difference when they put their mind to it.
Yeah, they
very
can.
blessed in Ohio. Senator Sherrod Brown and Senator Rob Portman both took this on, and we were able to make changes. So we're going to be making some changes next year too. We just have to see who gets in this election and is going to stay put for at least a few months, you know.
Right. Wow. I'm curious, you mentioned one soldier that had 32 traumatic brain experiences.
Yes.
How in the world, like, and was this over a very short period of time, or was this a lengthy?
This was over 4 years.
Over 4
years. But it was still, like on there. A lot. And I mean, part of the thing was to name them all. And you go, and some of them, again, that I had issue with the military not thinking were important were, rollovers of Jeeps or, motor vehicle accidents. I go, that's a motor vehicle accident. That's something that you don't just brush off. So he had 3 of those in the early part of the fighting. I think the Hummers weren't, like an IED or a little blast would really overturn those vehicles. After, I think it was 4 or 5 years after the wars were going, they redesigned the vehicles but there were a lot of turnovers and, just going down the street, not even with an IED, you hit a bad bump or something and there goes the vehicle. So 3 of his injuries were those. So it was pretty horrific to me to listen to it. I couldn't believe he was actually speaking and talking things, but he couldn't find his way around his small town in Ohio. There were no driving skills, mapping skills. Those were all gone, his ability to remember things, like, when you give them a few phrases to remember, that had gone by the wayside. There were a lot of networks in his brain that had been broken, had been shattered, that needed to be laid down and reconnected. And that just hadn't been going on. So.
Is there a path to reconnecting some of those?
The pathway that I found for myself, and now a lot of different places are doing, this kind of thing, not enough, but was, practice. Okay, I know that sounds really strange, but the difference between a traumatic brain injury and like a fracture, because we hear those compared all the time, is when you have a neuromuscular kind of thing, primarily a musculoskeletal, I should say, if your muscles or your skeleton is affected, you get a certain sense that this week you're better than last week. And the week after you're going to be better, particularly when you're young and you're healthy and you're fit to begin with. So there is that progression. What I found with my brain injury is nothing for weeks. And I tell my veterans this, that I couldn't utter a sound, not a syllable, for almost, I think, 3 months. Wow. Until the day I could say a sentence. It wasn't like it came back gradually. It's like the entire pathway had to be connected. So the nerves were growing out until they connect to the end organ there, my speech center. I couldn't say a thing. Wow. Now, my speech was horrible for about another 6 months. And I noticed it in a lot of our veterans, that stuttering, you're trying to get out and you just can't. Or what was even worse for me, I'd be in the middle of a sentence like this with you and then just like, where was I? What did I say?
Yeah.
Could you help me? What was I thinking, so I can think of how I finished that sentence, And that was much more common for me, and it was common for them too. So that particular speech pattern I was able to tell. But I kept telling me, you're not going to get better until it all connects, and then you will. And something that I just did, and I've learned since then from Dr. Lipton. I'll tell you about the study that he did for us, Dr. Michael Lipton, who at that point in time was at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx. Now he's in New York City proper. So, and by proper, I mean, I'm trying to remember, I believe he's at NYU, but he could be at Columbia, and I'm afraid to say the wrong one. So I'll look it up next time. I'll have that down pat. I should remember, but I don't. Anyhow, that being said, on that computer, I went over and over the Gettysburg Address, because we all learn it, we all have to memorize it. And it was far enough back that, you get your far away memory before your more recent memory in a brain injury, that I thought that I may be able to get some parts of it, and yet when I said my first sentence, I was reading a sentence that I was so happy, and literally it was C spot run. Oh, and then I just burst into tears because I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm so happy at such a low level milestone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, but it's leaps and bounds from where you were, so
Exactly.
it is exciting.
And from that time forward, so that's what I keep telling them, wait till the time. So like this young boy that couldn't find his way around, and I should say young man, because after boot camp, after you sign up on day one, you're no longer a girl or a boy.
Right.
You have graduated within 24 hours for sure. Probably on the bus ride in is what I hear.
Yeah, it's a truth telling when you get on the ground at wherever basic training site you're at, because you realize you are not at home anymore and you are in a whole different environment, and you better get used to it real quick, or there's going to be a lot of heartache for you coming up.
Isn't that the truth? It's just such a hard thing to do that, particularly, and I say this a lot, particularly in these times. And what I mean by that is, my father was in World War II, and the difference between some people in the cities and some people in the rural areas, the biggest difference was the people in the rural areas knew how to shoot, and the people in the cities maybe did not. Okay, so there was that. But there was a much more level playing field, and everybody went to war. If you didn't go to war over there, you were at war here. You were making things. It was an entire world. Right. Now you have, less than 1% of our population goes into voluntary service, and you're really out there. And then you go to a war zone that's not Europe. It's not the land of your ancestors. It's not who founded our country. It's an entirely different, with an entirely different topography.
Right.
I've seen some of the footage from actual Afghanistan, and you look at those mountains and they all look alike to me. But
Right.
if you grew up there and your livelihood was knowing what rock was where, so that you knew where you were placed, I mean, that's advantage, somebody out there looking at you rather than you trying to find them. It's a very different thing. And I don't think that we, the civilians, the 99% of us here, that's one of the reasons I want to get the civilian world aware of these things and help. So when somebody comes back, they don't just have to jump back into the 21st century with nobody giving them a pass for, maybe not knowing on the college campus the first day where the union is. You know what I mean? I give them a pass,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a whole different, it's culture shock coming back. It's culture shock going over there. And then when you come back, it's the same, because you're used to things the way they were over there. You finally kind of got into the rhythm and understanding
right.
This is the way life is. And then you get back over here to the States and you're like, now I'm lost because I knew what was expected of me, and my buddy had my back, and now my buddy don't have my back anymore. I'm out of uniform, and now I'm trying to navigate the civilian world, and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing.
And the civilian world is so different now because I remember I worked in Marysville, Ohio. Okay, that's the hospital that I was at, and we had a lot of individuals from Honda of America that was located there. So a lot of workers,
Mm-hmm.
And so our guys would come back from the military. And I'll never forget the day that there was just about 10 people on the line who decided they would just leave. Okay. And it was a particular line, but they kept the line going by the 5 veterans that were there because they weren't leaving. This was not something they were going to, and it horrified them. I mean, how could somebody leave their post? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
At least you wait till the end. And it was some fun thing that was going on a Friday afternoon. They left at lunchtime, so they had 3 hours of their shift. But, those are not things that settle well when life and death depends on, for a year or longer, for you to be on schedule,
Right.
everybody to be working on what they're working on. And I mean,
Yeah.
that to me, I say my best training was that I went to Catholic school. I mean, I was used to a uniform. I was used to people in charge. I was used to doing everything the same way. Yeah, that was an easier thing for me than when I got into the world myself. But you also are here in a few days. I mean, it's not like 3 months going over to Europe in World War II and 3 months coming back. It's much more, it's so quick, and you're supposed to adjust that quickly. And I think the first time we saw that was with Vietnam, and those poor guys who couldn't even say that they served in the military because there was so much anti-war, protesting and feelings that it was really very difficult. So I say that my whole education has with dealing with our veterans, our guardians that we'll talk about, has come from the Vietnam era and from this young group of the global war terror, Iraq and Afghanistan. And I actually take some offense to the greatest generation being World War II. I said they had everybody in the world behind them. Let's not say who served better than anybody else. I mean, I think that each of these conflicts have had their own set of major difficulties to overcome, both going there and coming back. And everybody needs to be honored as, the saviors, the guardians of our way of life.
I appreciate that you said that, because, I feel the same way too. I mean, I think the World War II veterans and prior, they had a very hard war to fight because the tools they had to do their job were not as advanced as what we have. And so, they were very brave to do what they did and to have succeeded in what they did on the battlefield. Right. But the other wars too, we've succeeded and we've done things, and the way we fight is a little bit different. I mean, it's the same but different. We've got different tools and different things in our hip pockets now to make a difference in the war. So I mean, we may have had a little easier in our generation as far as the things we had at our disposal to use, the helicopters and the drones and all the rockets and missiles and things that weren't something that World War II would have, or even Vietnam would have, for that matter. So I really appreciate that you said that, because there are some heroes that have gone over and done some amazing things and brought back people back to the States that otherwise, if they hadn't been there and
absolutely
put in the work, they wouldn't have come home. So
the heroism that they just brush off, that everybody just, brush off. I could not believe. I'm in awe of them. And I will tell you that every person that I talk to, including yourself, so I am in awe of your patriotism, which goes beyond it is, I will not just clap at a memorial, at a 4th of July parade for the 250th birthday. I won't just do that. I'm going to volunteer my life for this nation. And that is not happening now. You are the 1% of the country that's doing that. And I applaud you for that. We wouldn't be able to make it without you. And actually, I've learned from dealing with you all that we are like the people who go in everywhere in the world. I mean, there's so many parts of the world where our military is right now, though we don't even know about. True. Where it's keeping peace and keeping things under wraps for totally different, folks than us. And I appreciate that about y'all.
My hat's off to everyone that's gone overseas and done the things they've done, and people who serve in general. I consider myself walking among heroes myself. So I understand what you're saying.
I consider myself just learning and being in awe of them. That is for sure.
Absolutely. So were you a doctor when this happened?
Oh, yeah, I was. I mean, I've been out of medical school for about 20 years. And like I said, I was just so shocked. I actually kept a journal, Terry, and I'm so mad at myself for throwing it away, because I couldn't really think. And I sat there and I go, man, I better, write. But I could write a few little words and stuff. But it looked like when I finally came back it was a year later. And I looked at this journal, it looked like something that a preschooler may have tried, Oh my goodness. And it bothered me looking, but I should have just put it away somewhere and come back to it, because I think it could have helped in, kind of the progression as to who I was. So yeah, I was stunned by how much I lost on my hard drive. The brain, I tell my young guys, I go, okay, it isn't an organ, it's a computer. Consider it your computer. And a bunch of your hard drive has gone down and we're not getting that back, okay? We can try to rebuild some of it. But what Dr. Lipton had taught us is you take the part of your brain that's working and you work that and work that and work that. And that's what I did unknowingly, because my left brain wasn't working. I couldn't speak where the speech center is, but also I couldn't do like the science and math that I love. I couldn't do, but I started maybe 3 months into it, just dabbling with my pen and writing poetry, and shocked the daylights out of me. Where did that come from? Oh my gosh! I was not the arts and scientist. I was only the sciences. Like what? Where did that come from? But in doing that, it actually helped bring my speech back, which is in the left side of the brain, which actually helped bring back a little bit of my math. My great math brain, and I hate to say great, but I loved math. I would do complex math just to calm down, because it was so pure, Terry. There's a right and there's a wrong. There's no gray zone.
Right.
So
wow.
that was my journey back. So I should get around to the Dr. Lipton study. So here we are. I'm at the VA. I see 85% of these things, but nobody was talking about it. The Rand Corporation by that time, Terry Tennillian, who I just adore, had done some major studies and came out. Yes, this is the signature wound of these wars at 20 to 25%, which is now up to nearly 1 million. Up to nearly 1 million men and women who served our nation in Iraq and Afghanistan are struggling every day with something going on with their brain that wasn't before. And that's what we need to pay attention to. But Dr. Lipton agreed to do a study with the diffusion tensor imaging, the new MRI, the MRI that didn't show just gross abnormalities, but those pathways we were talking about could actually show the rips in the pathways, could actually show what part of the brain had. And I really had to look for somebody, because this is kind of controversial. This is gutsy. I'm saying, I'm going to get you, we could only afford 22 veterans by the time all of our fundraising. Thank you. Shout out to AMVETS Post 26 in Mansfield, Ohio, that did much of the heavy lifting here. We got 22 veterans and their age matched sibling as close as we could, male sibling. These are all males, because the female brain is different and reacts different for sure. So, and got them to Albert Einstein for a battery of studies, including that. And at the end of that study, what Dr. Lipton had proven is that 80% of the brains not only had damage from an IED blast, but in the same 3 areas. Now, so that study was kind of, nobody really wanted to talk about that study. That's only 22. I go, but it's 80% and same 3 years. To me, that's no coincidence.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So it wasn't for several more years that, because we did our study in 2014. It was like 4 years later when the government actually kind of, I think, did these studies, because they had to, because there had been a couple, we were the first, and then there was a couple that came after that, and they were all small. And then it proved that, yes, it is something. And once they made that statement that this was a signature wound of the war, I thought everything would be fine, but it was not. That did not lead to a massive callbacks for, the first 10 years of being gone. That wasn't, no, it was eye-opening to me how slow government processes are, because in the civilian world, particularly in healthcare, you got to be fast at changing, or you lose your patients, you lose your clients. They go elsewhere. They go to the hospital down the street with the next best thing.
Right, the new technology,
exactly,
the newest treatment methods, and yes, absolutely.
Right. So that was another, eye opener there. But that's how we got that started.
Yeah, well, for veterans, if their only healthcare is the VA, they're kind of subject to whatever the VA decides.
Right.
If they decide they'll treat this thing, then they'll get treatment. If they won't, they won't, or they will have to find it elsewhere. And some will go get it, and some will not. because some of them don't have the resources to go get it.
Right.
They don't have their own insurance because they're unemployable or whatever the case may be.
Right.
They're depending on the VA to be responsible for war wounds and for, things that have happened in service, and to admit these things happened in service, because for the longest time they wouldn't admit to PTSD as a diagnosis, any of this stuff. And then they said that there's a lot of connection between a traumatic brain injury and maybe tinnitus or sleep apnea or some of these other things.
All of that,
kind of connected, and their comorbidities, if you want to call them that, to this injury, because it's relatable, because the traumatic brain injury is the nexus. That's what happened, causing all these other symptoms. I guess that's what the better word is, symptoms that people are experiencing.
Well, they're actually not even symptoms. They're actually pathologies. I mean, and some things like sleep apnea can lead to cardiac arrhythmias, to just died in your sleep kind of stuff. I mean, it's a serious issue. So this is a good segue into why, now that we've done all of that backstory, now we're talking about what's going on right now. And so what we said is I had to get in there and see the problem. Then we had to prove the problem. Now we're going to change the way that things are done. So I do have a copy of the book. Can I just hold it up?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, I brought it. So this is the book that we just released, Guarding Our Guardians, Guaranteeing America's Veterans a Future from Deployment to Employment. Because here's what we're stopping. I don't know how any citizen of our nation can live with the fact that we've had 7,100 deaths in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're coming up on 35,000 deaths by suicide in our veterans after they return home. Let's think about that. I mean, you're talking a 5-to-1 ratio of deaths by suicide, death in combat, and that's on us. I say that is absolutely on the civilian world. We are 99% of the resources. We are 99% of the population. We can't expect this 1% to leave, and many leave, in high school or at the end of their college, whatever. Even if they go to West Point, they end at the end of that. They're out there. It's not like they've been at home for a while. They know how to balance a budget at home. They know how to write checks. All of these things in life, they put their lives on hold. But when they come back, I've sat there and listened to that transition program, your TAP program. I've seen the angst in people's face with the PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. I said,
death by PowerPoint is what we say.
What do you say?
We say death by PowerPoint.
I mean, seriously, that's so crazy. So I said, I've seen that what we need to do is to allow some kind of a deboot camp, some kind of a downtime where you're still paid under the military to figure out what your next step is. Are you going to go to school? Do you want to go to a trade school? Where are you going to land? What is your health care right now? What will you need? None of those problems are figured out. I found out, and this is really true, and it bothered me that so many of the young men and women I talked to in Ohio and elsewhere were discharged with a handful of cash and a handful of OxyContin. And that was their plan. And I go, this cannot be.
Yeah, that's
plan, particularly if somebody's had 32 or 8 or 17 blast injuries, to go, okay, now just work your way back home. I got news for you. They've never been home. They went from high school or college there, most of them. I mean, that's not ever being here. So what we're talking about in Guarding Our Guardians is, first of all, change the narrative. I am so tired, Terry, of people saying to me, oh, you work with veterans. Well, I support veterans. And I said, well, what is it exactly you do? And there's this one.
Well, you didn't make me do something? I said I like them. Isn't that enough?
Well, I support them. Exactly. Have you written to your congressman? Are you reading what's going on with them? Did you hire, a guardian for your job? What sort of thing are you doing besides going to a parade and cheering? Besides, clapping when they were coming home? That's better than spitting like in the Vietnam War. I'll give you that. but that's not enough. And I think that the problem is not with the civilian world, it's with the civilian world not knowing. And I will tell you, so much of this I didn't know either. And what I'm asking for is 3 pathways: healthcare, education, employment. This is a call to action for our United States of America to reunite everybody. And let's work on this issue, because these are the leaders who volunteered their lives for our freedom. They are the ones who are going to make our communities, our states, our nation stronger. We can't allow that brain power, that courage, that experience to die by their own hands when they return home. That is totally on us. So that's what this book is all about. And we have experts from throughout the nation, many military. The education piece, we talk about, schools like the Ohio State University, where a retired colonel of the U.S. Air Force, Mike Carroll, put together a military and veterans, its own services. And everybody in campus had to know where it was, who it was, and when they needed to contact them. And he got that done. And my alma mater, Duquesne University, which is Ohio State is enormous. Duquesne is a lot smaller than that, mid-sized. And we had a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force who put it together for my alma mater. The same thing. Get veterans, first of all, together in their own space. Don't have somebody arrive on campus with no space to go, and I mean, people don't mean this to be as cruel as it is, but if you start asking, what was the worst thing you did over there? What did you see? No, you don't say that, you little, teeny bopper who hasn't lived through life and death for a year. You don't get to make that conversation. I'm sorry. You need to know more first. So I think that that's been very helpful.
I think that's great that, that they're trying to build a community for veterans, because that is the problem. When people return from service, they lose that connectivity to the people that supported them and had their back. And so when they're out there on their own, they're like, now what? All the structure they had is very unstructured now. And so you kind of, and especially if you have a traumatic brain injury too, and you're lost in the realm of what's real and what's not, and how my brain is functioning and what I'm able to do and not do. I mean, it really is a loss of a lot of things, and you flounder. And then that's at what point that they're like, well, why am I here?
Exactly. Or worse.
Why am I here? What's going on?
Yes. In the book, I give examples of veterans who contacted me, and some of the veterans were struggling in a school because they didn't have any direction and were probably put in a program that they shouldn't have been. I mean, I don't know why a medic, a Navy corpsman on the Marine side who had 2 tours of duty would not have been encouraged to go into sciences that he loved. Why the history degree? Where did that come from? This is what I'm saying. We need a plan here, people. When Secretary Robert Dole was the 8th Secretary of the VA, and by the way, he did, give us a little blurb in here as well. He now is CEO of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation for Caregivers. But when he was in that, our foundation had a letter from him that said that any veteran who called me and was struggling, and I've had calls now from vets from 29 states. It's not just Ohio, from 29. That they get a copy of this letter and they get their VA appointment within 2 weeks. That made all the difference in the world. You're not calling, you're hung up, call and hang up, call. No, you get that appointment and somebody cares and somebody talks to you. So the healthcare, there has to be a plan for healthcare. We've got 44% of our vets are now in rural areas. There may be a VA, there may not be a VA. There may be nobody there who's ever looked at a traumatic brain injury in their whole career. We need to make those connections before they leave. And lastly, if people are going into employment, we talk about the different employment initiatives. For instance, one in Marysville, in unison with the Honda dealership there, a gentleman by the name of Bruce Daniels developed a training program, put a veteran from Iraq in charge. Okay, he was a tanker, put him in charge of this training program, and it's to train them to work on Honda vehicles with all of the computer notion, all that. Now, what he does is they don't just come and have to work someplace else and learn here. He pays them $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to learn through this 2-3 year program. And then if they join on with him and outsource this thing, they are guaranteed an $80,000 a year job. Now, come on. That's the kind of future that somebody who offered their lives for you deserves. Every single one of them should have some pathway when they leave. And we, the civilian world, need to make sure they stay on it.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I applaud anybody who's putting together those types of programs, and you're putting together this type of program through your resources. So the mission of Resurrecting Lives Foundation is,
what we are here to serve the veterans of the global war on terror who struggle with traumatic brain injury. So our first part was awareness. Our second part was trying to get some political clout to get a few basic laws written, particularly when it dealt with suicide prevention, mentioned traumatic brain injury. It is a risk factor, huge risk factor. So we were able to get that first. The Jacob Sexton Suicide Prevention Act by Senator Joseph Donnelly included TBI for the first time. So we were able to do that. Now we're going to do this. And I want to mention, because you said you are based in Texas, Texas is already leading the pack. I just got back from Austin, Texas a couple of weeks ago, where we had a Guarding Our Guardians Day at the State House lawn. And Senator Juan Hinojosa, who was a distinguished Marine, 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, at the Vietnam Monument on the State House grounds, we had our Guarding Our Guardians moment, and they already have 2 different pilot programs that they're working on to get bills made for the smooth transition. The all important thing right now is we, the civilian world, call to action, get a smooth transition from military over here to civilian here, because it's going to take all of us, and let these people who are used to leading lead.
Right. Give us a job and we'll do it.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
So why did you call the book Guarding Our Guardians?
Oh, okay. So this is it. I got so tired. Like I said, there is a colonel I met at Fort Bragg, Colonel Risted. And Colonel Risted, every time I would say something, he goes, words matter. Words matter, Chrisanne. Right. You choose your words wisely. I go, okie dokie, I learned that from him. And then I started thinking how easily people let veterans just fly off their tongue. Oh, I support veterans. Oh, I love veterans. Oh, veterans. What are they really? I wanted to come up with, what do they stand for? So I'm here in Ohio. I am a Cleveland Guardians fan, for sure. My Cleveland Guardians wear red, white, and blue on their uniforms every single day. And they were renamed from the Indians to the Guardians based on a bridge, bridge in Cleveland, where there is a Native American sculptor on one side and a Native American. So from the time you get on the bridge till the time you're guarded, these are our guardians. And I thought, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bridge the civilian world to the military world and vice versa. So there's something to cross. You don't have to go through a minefield. You can actually cross a bridge. And we need to have the American people, myself included, I didn't know that, they have to know that without our military, without them coming back as our guardians, we don't have rights. We don't have the freedoms that we all enjoy. And I'm thinking, if we can get more people saying that, maybe they'll really realize, okay, these are guardians, so we will guard them. That's what our charge is, guarding our guardians. That's our charge.
I love that.
We're there to guard them. But that was my Cleveland Guardians, little shout out there. Oh, I've got to tell you this, Terry. This is so funny. I just love the veterans that every one of them, and each one has a different voice. That's for sure. But the one young man who was very deflated when I first met, and rightfully so, traumatic brain injury, asked to prove it himself. Come on. We're going to end that too. You shouldn't have to prove it. And every person who leaves their military should get a jump drive of their entire medical record to take to wherever they want to take it. That's one of the tenets that we have in here. We've got to do this. But this young kid, I go, listen, I said, you don't know me that well, but I won't give up on you. Trust me. I know this isn't a thing, but we're in this together now. I will not get up. We will get this traumatic brain injury both diagnosed correctly and treated. And he looked at me and goes, I'm beginning to believe that. He goes, why? He goes, well, you're from Ohio and you still cheer for the Guardians and the Browns, so you don't give up easily. And I sat there and I go, you got a point. Right. You got a point. Although I will tell you, I did come to both Super Bowl parades in Dallas for sure. I really loved. I loved Dallas. I came down there first to stuff envelopes for Ross Perot.
Oh wow. You're really busy doing all kinds of work. And I don't think anyone could ever say that you aren't involved or engaged if you put your money where your mouth is. I mean,
I try.
As the saying goes,
If we could all do that, we wouldn't have problems to solve, I mean, these are really easy steps. Get a plan. That's an easy step. Everybody should have. You get a plan when you go from kindergarten to first grade, for heaven's sakes,
Right. Educational plan. There's something in place.
Exactly.
You do this, and then you get this, and then this, and this.
Right. It's not rocket science. It's not expensive. It's just common sense and caring, compassion, and placing healing and honor together. We want to give you this chance to succeed because you've helped us, avoid the fray for so long. And all of my success, like I said, everything that I owe on the backs of all of the military members who came before, for sure.
Wow. So if someone wants to order the book, it would be at the resurrectinglives.org/books is where they can
order it there. But the best place is probably Amazon. Although I will say that sometimes they redirect you to another author whose name is Chrisanne, who does sci-fi fiction. I had one poor little guy who got the wrong book. He goes, Dr. Roy, is this really what you meant to write? And I'm thinking he's talking about a book. I go, yes. He goes, did you really mean to write it that way? I go, yeah. He goes, well, I just didn't get it. And he starts talking something about this sci-fi plot. I go, whoa, time out. Wait a minute. That's right. Let me show this again. You can find out how to order it too on our website, resurrectinglives.org. at the books. And we also, like I said, on Amazon is another place. And we are going to be having various events around the nation. Like we had San Diego for California, Austin, Texas for Texas, Texas being the #1 veterans population, California #2. We're going to be having them in Ohio and Pennsylvania, kind of the top 10 within the first few months of releasing this. And then our march to DC in March, National Traumatic Brain Injury Month next year in 2027.
Oh, nice. Yes, we all need to get engaged with that. Like you said, you got to, you actually got to put your foot forward and do something, saying you support and actually supporting are two different actions. One's something you say to be nice. I support that. And then the other one is I'm actually supporting that.
Right. Exactly. And like I said, I was just thrilled with Texas. I was thrilled at San Diego. 100-year-old captain, Royce Williams of the U.S. Navy finally got his mission over Korea declassified and had just received the Medal of Honor when we came for our book launch. And he came and he said to everybody, I read this in 3 days. You all need to read it and we all need to do it. And I thought, at 100 years old, this man is there, say, this makes sense. Let's do this. So I told him, I said, the book reviews mean nothing after that. That's the best book review I could have, as you're saying that for sure. So, yes. And it's on our website, past events, events coming up. And if you have something that you want to plan, we can help you plan it in your own community. Anybody who's listening, we can help you plan it. We've got the little run of show here. I've got this great communications group, Jennifer Bond, U.S. Navy veteran, and my right-hand assistant, Marine wife, Jessica Eubanks. They keep me going because they keep me on the straight and narrow. So
that's awesome.
I really do appreciate them. I appreciate their dedication. And I appreciate everybody in your listening audience who's going to take this and do something in your community. Take somebody in for their medical appointment. Don't ask a veteran, do you need anything? You say, I'm coming over tomorrow and I'm taking you to your appointment. Okay. You don't say, do you need any food? You say, okay, here's a casserole. You're just getting back, and we know that it can be, do it. Just do it. I mean, I know that that's the famous Nike thing, so I can't adopt it. But if you're thinking Nike, think just do it and just do it.
Well, I mean, you're so right, though. It's a lot of people, if you ask them, do you need help? Oh, no, I'm good.
Right.
But when you say, I'm going to do this for you, and you don't really give them a choice necessarily, you say, I'm picking you up, or I'm bringing you this, or I'm doing that for you. Right. I mean, that shows that you really do want to do something, and it's not really lip service that, oh, what do you need? Just tell us. If you need something, just let us know.
Right.
We're here. Just let us know.
Right.
But as a veteran, and other people too, it's not just veterans, but veterans are typically the ones that say, no, I got this. I don't need help. I'm good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So that's what you're going to get for the most part. There's not very many that will say, yeah, come over and mow my lawn, or come over and do my windows, or my laundry, or whatever the case may be. They won't. But if you say, hey, I'm coming over, I'm going to help you with this thing, or I'm going to do this for you because I want to.
Call to action. If everybody could do just one thing a month, think of that. If you could do just one thing a month, how great a community you would be, serving. I mean, it would just be amazing, particularly employment. What about they're bringing in new recruits at my company? How about if you come to work with me tomorrow? I'll introduce you to a couple people. I mean, an employer is lucky to have a veteran who is used to a schedule, who has such training. Just ask them, what did you do in the military? Because some of these logistics and the corpsmen, and I mean, these things are feats of the gods. I call it feats of the Titans. Zeus is here and Apollo's over there. I mean, it's just pretty crazy. I am so blessed. I'm blessed by you to have been able to have this opportunity to be a voice. And I'm blessed by every single one of you and your families who have shared their stories with me since 2008, because it's meant everything. And that's what this book is based on. It's your story, your stories, and what we need to do. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. So how can somebody get engaged with your foundation and help support you? What do you need? Or
what we would really love, seriously, is to begin having communities take on this particular call to action. Okay, so if we've got our website up there, there's places where you can leave us a message. You can see what events are there. We have podcasts, Brainstorms podcasts, because of those storms in your brain. If you want to be on one of those podcasts, you've got a story to tell, let us know. Get engaged with us, and we will get you things to be engaged with. So, particularly, again, if we go California, Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Florida, you get those states, you've got, over a third of the veterans in the nation. Let's get it in those states and get your legislations working. Texas, like I said, is already doing it. And let's get this movement started. We've got plenty of ways. We've got ways. If you're done with the book, take it to your library. Tell the library what this is like, or your school, or your university. Let's get that word out there. When I first started working on this, I had a documentary that I filmed, and the first thing that I saw was a quote by Margaret Mead, and it was at Santa Monica Beach, where they put a reenactment of Arlington Cemetery in the beginning of war. And it said, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Let's change it. 250 years of not taking care of those who guard us properly. Next 250 is going to be a different story, for sure.
I love that. That's a good note to end the show. And I really do appreciate you being on. And I've really learned a whole lot. And I think others have too. And I will definitely be ordering the book and seeing what we can do about getting something started.
Yes.
In whatever areas that we're in. But I really do appreciate all you do for veterans and all you've done for veterans, and really educating the public, because it comes down to really education.
Right.
And
it's education.
Really doing that, and really appreciate it. And I really also appreciate that you acknowledge people's injury and they're not having to prove it to you.
No.
You're seeing
that's
the
why I
signs
went to
and you're
school.
seeing that. Yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate that people aren't having to work for that acknowledgement. Yes, I was injured. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I have these things going on. And yes, I do need help.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you're doing that, because it's a weight off your back knowing that someone believes you.
It's true. Isn't that true? For sure. For sure.
So Tim Hendricks is saying, hi, Terry. Hi, Chrisanne. Great show. Yeah. He's
nice to meet you.
From Florida.
Oh, see, the number 3 state veterans. Get an event in your area. We'll help you with that.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I appreciate the time you spent with us tonight for the audience, and I appreciate the time you gave me tonight, Dr. Gordon, and all you've given us as far as information on how we can get involved and engaged, and we will definitely be looking at that book.
Thank you so much. You take care now. Thank you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. This is Trace Around signing off.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.